की ये गर्जना से भस्म हुए धूर्त सब, धड़ से होगा सर अलग, टुकड़े होंगे आतड़ियों के, हरी हुए उग्र बेहरी हुए रुद्र। युद्ध घोर छिड़ गया है जंग एक ठनी, अस्त्र शस्त्र दंत नख है भौह अब तनी, चल पड़े तो मर गए जितने भी असुर थे यहाँ, बह रही धरा पे लाल रक्त की नदी 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 नदी। नवः रुद्र रूपम नवः रुद्र रूपम नवः रुद्र रूपम नवः रुद्र रूपम, जय 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 नरसिंह जय।
श्री श्रीनरसिंहकवचं ध्यायेत् लक्ष्मीपतिं नारसिंहं विभूतिम् सिंहासनस्थं सुरसिद्धसंसिद्धिम् सिंहमुखं दैत्यनिशाचरान्तकम् भक्तानां भयाहरं त्रिभुवननाथम् ॐ श्रीनरसिंहम् उज्ज्वलितज्वालदेभ्यः रक्षतु मां सर्वतः सर्वदैव पूर्वे प्रहरादवल्लभा शूरो जयति दक्षिणे भक्तप्रवरं मदपोतु पश्चिमे चतुर्भुज करवालधारी उत्तरस्यां वै नमः करुणाकराय ऊर्गवीरण्यकशिपुं हतवान् प्रभो अधो न सिन्धे सततं मम रक्षतु शिरो मे सिंहाय विकटाय पातु ललाट रत्नवाल्यभूषणः नेत्रे श्वेतज्वालधारी महावीरः श्रवणे सिंहनादो मम रक्षतु न सम्पातु हिरण्यस्य मरतकाय वदनं नारसिंह सदा मङ्गलाय जिह्वां योगानन्दकथेत दंष्टुरा कण्ठे पातु प्रह्लादानन्ददातार भुजौ चक्रधीरः खड्गविशालधारी वक्षः पातु महालक्ष्मीपति नाभिं च पातु नरहर सदैव कटिं मे करुणासिन्धुः समर्थः जङ्घे पातु महावीरवेषः गुल्फो पातु विश्वरूपधारी पादोस्किराय श्रीनरसिंहदेवः शरणागतं मे पातु हरिरनन्दः सर्वरोगान् शमयतु श्रीनरसिंह दुःस्वप्नदारिद्र्यमपि
Okay. Oh, where am I? There? There I am. There I am. Hello. Welcome. Bonjour, ça va? Auf Wiedersehen. Okay. So, this is I'm just gonna get into some stuff. I've got six threads. So this is only one post, but they're not one. The rest, I feel small. Okay. And this is a post about ophiolites and where they're found, a video. So this is from this video, but this image is from this paper. But this video, which is here, this one. Oh, I got Shalagram Zone still. I was just thinking earlier, I got so many freaking activities as subject matter. Especially with the, let me move this. It's hard to like look at the chat. I need a better way to see chat than like a different screen. If it popped up like right where I'm looking. I used to have it, but it's a pain in the ass. Okay, so anyway, here's where this is from. I thought it was interesting, basically. It's ophiolites. What do we see? What caught my attention? one thing was here, which magnetic anomalies, it's quite there, and then it has not just one, but like a secondary one and a tertiary one, and then below that is another Tethys related ophiolites related to the shoving out of materials that were not where we think they were, and how we think they were, etc. Earth expanded by the global flood, which caused undercurrents below the crust that are traceable in utter nuance by the magnetic anomaly map of the Earth, where not just currents over here and that cause that, but here, for example, it goes straight down, runs into resistance, and goes left and goes right, which will come back up in some of these other posts I had, but essentially we can see it here. It goes down and over, and then goes less down and over kind of thing, and just like a higher. Like over here, let's see, let's look at it specifically. It goes to north of Korea. Like here. So we can just see that. Let's look at the magnetic anomaly map. There's north of Korea here, so that's here, and we can see it go across in the magnetic anomaly map. It's much more related to like over here in appearance and across this way generally, but it looks like it still resembles like a flow down this way that kind of goes here and goes over this way. So it's also got that element of that one, and then the offshoots, and then the main Tethys current. And then we've got the one that goes from Baja California, where the focal point of the Earth's expansion process were flood currents and undercurrents, including like magmatic melt, as we'll come to find out as we look forward into some of these other posts. Melt is probably the best way to describe it in a just what it's called geologically, although the details of that melt are really not understood geologically. It's pretty much just kind of sitting there, and in some places there's more of it maybe, but like it's not in motion. But the reality is it's flowing like water. It's flowing. It's in motion, and it literally shaped the magnetic anomalies of the Earth. Another interesting thing, oh man, I don't know if I mentioned it. I took some pictures of it. I'll open it real quick. There was this video about the magnetic or South Atlantic anomaly, which I don't think I made any posts about. So like, for example, 1590, it's proposed to be barely visible right there off of like central southern Africa, and then generally the same, maybe getting a little bigger and then moving off and going to like right here, it looks like a specific general location where the focal point is, I say focal point of this system that is then dividing as we approach present. But interestingly, I'm like, what is this dude talking about when the title, where is it, is what like drew my attention the most initially was the title is Archaeomagnetic and Speleomagnetic Record. I was like, of the South Atlantic Anomaly. Like, I googled it, it didn't, this word speleomagnetic didn't come up. I'm like, what the hell is this? So then I look at the prefix and it means like caves. So I guess it's cave related, and cave related, cave related undercurrents, cave related, and interestingly, he says what we do in this speleomagnetism study is to look at what are these called? I want to say stalagmites. Whatever these things are called, maybe stalagmites. Sorry if I'm freaking retarded. And then yeah, that's what it is, or no, it's not what it is. These things that form in caves, apparently magnetic particles are deposited from drop water. I'm like, dude, it's forming a mass that like directs current. That's not only directing current just by its mass, its structure being present, where like current moves by. In a cave, maybe air moving by even functionally, or whatever, like gaseous. Also water, but not necessarily like happening in this way where it's drip water and just like a very slow process, but more just showing that there's like a thing like this going on. That to me is fascinating. Lots of stuff like this I noticed today, where there's magnetic particles in a cave setting that can be used for magnetic records in the past, because these are like really good for dating apparently, so they can date it to like 10 years. So they can say within a 10-year frame, this was the magnetic field influence, though, that we could detect from the South Atlantic anomaly, because that's what they're focused on. I don't know exactly how they managed to pull it off, but it sounds like they did do it. It worked, the method functioned, but I thought that was interesting. Side note, because I only posted this. Apparently, I started posting about the South Atlantic anomaly. While I was watching that, I was like, I wonder if there's any new ones. And so I just like limited my search to 2025. And there was this paper that sounded very nice. And this is what they had. So I've seen this one. I don't know if I've seen the 2024 version here. So I think that's new. Where, I don't know, it looks maybe just more energetic over here. And interestingly, this one really caught my attention because it's the change since 2015, since this first one. The amount of change that has occurred globally. So apparently magnetic intensity has increased in this region, which maybe is related to just that this system is moving away, and maybe even like kind of related to whatever's going on over there, like almost shifting where it's here, but like across time it's shifting over here, so that there's like a cross time change, which then makes me think the South Atlantic anomaly is actually going for North America, maybe through South America, maybe even dividing. I don't know why the divide would go that way, and then there'd be this like large area. I don't know what to make of it. It's very curious. I guess to me, I guess it would suggest more current is flowing to those regions, undercurrent maybe, if it's at all related to, I mean, this is at the surface. So maybe it's more related to like atmospheric influence than undercurrent crust. Anyway, let's get back to what I was checking out. So these are ophiolites again. But then we got this band that goes from over here. Noticeably, it's the same as the ones all the way over at... Because this point here by Fiji was over here by Baja, California. And then it emitted a current through this way that ended up going up to this corner, but it went this way, so that these are the same and like links them in a way that plate tectonics really would just kind of, I guess they're just Western Pacific, maybe it's because he named it that way, pardon me, but they are Paleozoic, Mesozoic. It's actually, I feel like that's early Mesozoic. Okay, to 266. But then it emitted a current that basically went this way to over here. If we look at Earth, it went like this from here up this way and wrapped around into this point, but then it just kind of kept going this way to over here, but then it shifted off over here, so it ended up basically going this way and then down, like around, basically hugging this edge and going down here to have like a straight current into Indonesia to create the arc at the front of the energetic wave that was traveling, that then shifts so it's more focused like across this way as it opens, so it shifts. But before it shifted, it was going over this way, which would make sense for why there's ophiolites across that whole span there. So that kind of like is quite revealing, really. And then it even continues around Papua New Guinea, or New Guinea, just New Guinea. Sorry, sorry, other portion of Indonesia. And then Paleozoic only in Australia. I'm a little confused by that, honestly. Especially where it is. It looks kind of Eromanga Sea area. But let's keep looking. Then we got down here, which is really, let's see, late Proterozoic to recent. Just this point here, where RP generally was over here before the Caribbean opened, before the Americas spread and separated this way as well. This is such a cool map. It doesn't have Antarctica, so it's like missing part of the Earth. But it's such a cool way to depict it. I've never seen it like this. And I noticed here's Iceland, here's Kamchatka. Like maybe a little further off, but they're quite mirrored. I'd say relatively mirrored. Across a pole, maybe a moving pole that they're kind of like, this is just like the structure of the Earth kind of pole, and not necessarily like the present magnetic pole. Maybe Iceland and Kamchatka are related to the pole motion somehow. I don't know. But let's see, anything else? Certainly other stuff. Nothing that particularly comes to mind. Okay, so then I came across this video. This is Gillian Fowler, I think. I don't know if I'm saying it right. But she did a presentation, and here, that was just published the other day. I don't know if it was given the other day, but it was just published the other day. And I was like, I was looking for Iceland stuff. At some point, Nick Zentner, a few days ago, maybe a week ago, announced that his next A to Z YouTube will be on Alaska. So if we go to Nick Zentner's playlist, A to Z Alaska. And then his previous one was a Cascades, which I really haven't looked at that much. I probably should. Crazy Eocene, Ice Age floods, exotic terrain, somewhere in here, Baja, BC. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Baja, BC. But Alaska, and then watching some of the recent videos, it occurred to me, like, all this stuff's going on, the hit and run with all this material being deposited over here and into Alaska. But Alaska is moving counterclockwise. Which, I don't know, I was like, it came to mind, I have included it in my own research because I'm trying to, like, piece together the motions and things in ways that require kind of looking into it more than a plate tectonic framework where it's kind of already at least, like, generally done. Where in expanding Earth, I gotta kind of think about it more and see what, like, data there is. And I found it, like, to basically, when I was looking into how did whatever happened up here with Hawaii happen, see, like, 400 onward underground science, and all the live ones, I guess, I don't know. But in my documentary, underground science documentary, but I just came across that it opened out counterclockwise. I mean, if it's moving clockwise, then that kind of makes sense because there's a flow of some kind of propagation northward that is pushing it, so it's moving clockwise, but that's not what's happening. It's moving counterclockwise into that. I'm like, okay, and I said he was looking in that one video that he's announced it for thoughts, and of course I share, like, maybe a little too me specific things. I'm like, this is anomalous for this reason kind of thing. Well, the counterclockwise motion. So I was like, counterclockwise motion, and then I was like, well, I think the counterclockwise motion really is related to the high Arctic large igneous province where the Arctic opens. So, like, really, like, to really look at Alaska, we gotta look at the Arctic too. And I, like, comment that, and then I'm like, I should look at the Arctic, and I start looking at it, and next thing I know, I find myself over at Iceland looking at some stuff, and I'm coming across all this great data that I'm just like, I kind of should record, because I've been just posting on Twitter, like, all day, and yesterday, and the day before, I guess. But to quote her here, there's very little. So her, she's basically saying hotspots are not evidenced, as we'll read, and her and her colleagues have an alternative model, so we can. They've even got a website that I've come across before. I just didn't realize it was hers. She runs this, mantleplumes.org. So, a bunch of stuff on here, but plume theory, plate theory, and also impacts. So this is like a third option, I guess, which I've heard for Ontong Java Plateau. I've not heard it for anywhere else, honestly. But plate theory is basically a plate tectonic framework explanation for why these plumes do not exist. Because she's like, the data, basically that's what this video is. She's like, the data shows they don't exist. The best example and only example is Hawaii, and even there it's hard to say. And she goes into technical. She's like, maybe here. No, this is their model of basically spreading. So something, I'm not exactly sure what's happening with the spreading, but maybe just that it's spreading is just inferred, but where the spreading leads to like crustal weaknesses in a underplate. There it is. This underplate falls and divides because it's cutting, not from here, but by the pulling. That it then, those which are eclogite. I don't know how to say it. Eclogite. Maybe I should have hit yes. But then the pieces fall is the theory, and then they do present a possibility for producing the outcomes that in Iceland. So the point is, though, obviously, I don't agree with her interpretation or their model. I agree with their reasoning for disagreeing with the consensus model. It's just still in plate tectonics when the Earth expanded. That's my that we'll see is kind of like evidenced in all these things as we go forward. Okay, the only place where there's really strong evidence. Alright, let's go back here. There's very little evidence that any of these hotspots are hot. Hotspots. So she's at some point she says hotspot, which I think in her paper that I was reading, hotspot implies high temperature. So if there's not a high temperature, there's not a hotspot. Where's the hotspot if there's not a high temperature? But then what she goes into, especially with Hawaii, is in order to find an anomaly deep underground that they're looking for these mantle plumes, they have to have a good enough array and then even the data can put in like true artifacts where like the seismic station is one place and the earthquake that they're monitoring is somewhere, and then the seismic station, like basically the earthquake goes through somewhere where there's some kind of slowing down, which they infer as a like hot melt. So it slows down and then it reaches the seismic station, but then they just kind of draw these like strips as if it's a strip because that's like the angle, as a method almost to be like, we found it, but like a very unrepeatable, like people using the same data are getting different results in their models, what the hotspot looks like, if there's a hotspot at all, is very suspicious. And as she says, there's very little evidence that any of these hotspots are hot. The only place where there's really strong evidence of quite high temperatures is Hawaii, funnily enough. No other so-called hotspots is there really any other convincing evidence that it's hot. So this is a complete misnomer, really. People see magma, they see eruptions, and they say it must be hot. Because there's volcanics here and not there, it must be that it's hot here. But we say, no, that's not necessarily true. You've got extension, so this is kind of going into her interpretation, but you've got extension there, so the volcanics can actually leak out, which is related to expansion causing extension. Over there, you don't have extension, so any melt is contained in the crust. So now we're getting into this concept like melt contained in the crust. It's just there, it's down there, but it just can't come up to the surface. Make sure I'm like I'll make sure my mic's not muted. I'm like okay, where was I? But we say not true. It's down there. So in Iceland, again, people see volcanoes everywhere, rift zones, flood basalts forming, and whoa, it must be really hot down there in the mantle. But I don't think there's any more. At least there might be 10% more, she says, for various reasons. But there isn't a massively great extra amount of volcanism there to what you see at the normal seafloor. And so, to call it a hotspot and say there's a super, super huge amount of volcanism, she said super, at Iceland, while that's not true, I think it's relatively normal oceanic crust type amount. And then I just started watching any YouTube video that she presented on. There are places that we don't understand, and Hawaii is one of these. If somebody could really find out what causes Hawaii, I'd be out of a job. Hawaii is just a huge ragtag of things that we don't understand. One colleague wrote, who I'm like, where he started off by saying, Hawaii reminds me of that SNL's program where they stuck a strange object in the bushes and then filmed people walking up to it and saying, what the hell is that? This guy, and this is still her, this guy is a Pacific Marine geophysicist and an expert on the whole region. I'm like, is she talking about William Sager? Sager? I don't know how to say his name. The Tamu Massif, Shatsky Rise, and many other things that I've like looked at his work in many of my videos. He's been like hugely one of my probably the number one source like of any author numerically, like the amount of technical papers that their name was on, that I looked at and based my research on, he's probably number one because he's all over the Pacific. He is like the Pacific Marine geophysicist. As she's telling this story, and I'm like, maybe it's him. And I found it on her webpage. Here it is. I'm like, there it is. Yeah, there it is. It is him. Holy shit. But he's saying, this guy is saying, what the hell is that? And he said Hawaii is just so inexplicable and it just doesn't fit any theory that you simply or just simply cannot look away and you cannot understand what it is. And that's because it's not typical. It's completely unique on the earth. And virtually nothing whatsoever about it fits the theory. Most remarkably, this time progressive trail, which is time progressive but in the wrong place. And then she goes on and says, with all due respect, if we want to get to the truth, we cannot afford ourselves the luxury of saying, you know, I'm an expert in this and other aspects of earth science. That's somebody else's job. We're not going to get to the truth like that. William Seger, definitely, this is me now, definitely one of the world's leading experts, and that's me finding the post there, and then me reading it here. Although I am not yet brave enough to jump entirely off the hotspot bandwagon, as he's been 25 years, if there ever was a hotspot, you would think that it would be Hawaii. I have to admit that the behavior of the hotspot seems un-hotspot-like. It apparently zoomed westward at high speeds, sometimes going fast and sometimes slower, and screeched to a halt at the time of the Hawaiian Emperor Bend. I suspect something is amiss. Either we are being misled by some of the tectonic or age data, or we do not understand how the Hawaiian Emperor chain formed. Back to Saturday Night Live. What the hell is that? I don't know what the hell that thing is. End of this article. Also, I think he's got a paper there and there that I can't click here, but then I was like, I should look at some of her papers, which maybe we can just real quick go to the actual title page that I didn't put in. Are hotspots hotspots? The term hotspot emerged in the 1960s. This is published in a peer-reviewed journal. It is not just baseless accusations. It's from speculations that Hawaii, specifically Hawaii, notice how it started there, might have its origins in an unusually hot source region in the mantle. It subsequently became widely used to refer to volcanic regions considered to be anomalous in the then new plate tectonic paradigm. Wait, you're saying plate tectonics doesn't fit the data? Sorry. shit. I mean, we could try to fit it in the data, but now we're just contorting plate tectonics to have these complex things that may or may not be there. There's really no way to tell. It's not like there's evidence of this plate that fell, the eclogite that fell to create, like it's just modeled, and the model could do it, so maybe it does it kind of thing, but it's still in plate tectonics. And noticeably, 1960s, at a time when expanding Earth was being rejected offhandedly, they excused that plate tectonics didn't fit the data and just made some shit up. This model has tended to be assumed a priori to be correct. Relating to or denoting reason which proceeds from theoretical deduction rather than observation. Assumed theoretically without observational basis to be correct. It is what it is. It's not correct. It's clearly not the case. It's just it's one of those things where the method is so poor that they can't like disprove the falsity. Like, it's very difficult to image, so it's hard to disprove the false thing without actually having a better model, which was rejected. It was just rejected for no reason, because the reason was how did the Earth expand? Guess what? We don't need an explanation to venture down the road of did the Earth expand, because maybe somewhere down the road, as we come to see all the evidence that it did expand, we will figure out how it happened. We don't have to have the answer how it happened right away. And to just say that not having an answer is reason to say no answer exists, that's not very scientific. That's just kind of naysaying of people who were dominant and opinionated but didn't know what they were talking about and insisted that plate tectonics be the paradigm, or maybe they were like purposely trying to lead people astray because they didn't want the truth to be known, because they wanted to control the world. I don't know if it's something like that. I mean, there's certainly some weird Epstein relationships, or Maxwell's father like invented peer review, not like paid for magazine peer review. It's like they take control of it. It's a little suspicious. Anyway, now all the information's behind paywalls and shit. Most volcanic regions that may reasonably be considered anomalous in the simple plate tectonic paradigm have been built by volcanism, distributed throughout hundreds, even thousands of kilometers, and as yet, no unequivocal evidence has been produced that any of them have high temperature anomalies compared with average mantle temperatures for the same depth elsewhere. Any. Not a single one? I thought this was just a thing. Isn't that weird? How it's like, anyone knows what a hotspot is geologically. Like, It's just common knowledge, and yet it's not even real. There's no evidence for it. What the fuck? But it's just like the Big Bang. It's like, oh shit. Expansion of space is non-linear? Well, it accelerated. It's not that the observation is not caused by expansion of space and is instead caused by gravity. No, it's that it's caused by expansion of space and acceleration. So then they start adding new shit to explain things, which is sometimes reasonable if it's like based in observation. They're like, lava lamp. That's the observation we got, lava lamps. But did you look at the Earth? I don't see a lava lamp. I mean, literally though, I've seen, no offense, no offense guys, I've seen geologists just like lava lamp, heat source, bubbling up stuff, gets to this cooler area where it falls down, lava lamp. And I'm like, wait a minute. As yet, no unequivocal evidence has been produced that any of them have high temperature anomalies. What does it take for unequivocal evidence? Let's say, for example, this rock is composed of basalt, and they tested it's got basalt in it. Unequivocally, it is composed of basalt. It's not a like complicated issue. I mean, certainly there are complications. I'm talking like the master ophiolites in Oman. Apparently, like ophiolites can be different variations on how ophiolitic they are. I don't know if that's a word, but where to the point where they tried to distinguish which ones are like the most ophiolites and which ones are probably not ophiolites, and just confused for them. So certainly a thing, but point being, there would be evidence of the chemicals. Observations could be made, deductions could be made. We're working with a really, I don't know if I took any pictures of it. I might have some pictures of it. Oh, this was cool. Here we go. It's probably here. These are all from her talk on Iceland. I don't know. It's alright. Oh, yeah. I actually kind of forgot what I was looking for. I still don't see it though. It's pretty much just a seismic array showing that it kind of has like something like this, but then like there's like a region of reliability that's only like so far, and not really it's just not good enough. It's as simple as that. The method is inadequate. Stop acting like it's good enough. Figure another way to do it. I don't know. There's gotta be another way. The method just sucks. It's not good enough. And now I'm wondering what else is freaking based in questionable data that's based on a like unreliable method when it comes to like seismic understructure. Hottest part of a plume is predicted to be the center. So these are some like past ideas, I believe. the center of the head and the tail immediately beneath. Most of the plume head is expected to be cooler. The temperature in a plume head is less expected to reduce from a maximum at its center over the tail to approach ambient mantle temperature at its periphery. As a consequence, the highest temperatures are expected to be found near the center of flood basalts and at currently active hotspots. The plate hypothesis predicts that the sources of melt erupted at the surface lie mostly within Earth's surface conductive layer, which comprises the shallowest 100 to 200 kilometers. So basically, her and her colleagues interpret the source melt erupting generally from 100 to 200 kilometers depth, which is pretty much undercurrents, as I've been talking about. That they're undercurrents, baby, but it's just lacking the current. I was like, if you just had the flow here. It's just the flow there, then it would all like show. I mean, I think maybe, I don't know, but it's too many doors of. She's busy too. She's probably don't even look at my images or like, I don't want to friggin' open these. The term hotspot was exported from Hawaii, the study of Hawaii, and became widely applied to unusual volcanic regions all over the world. Unfortunately, the expression has traditionally been used with little questioning. Just like plate tectonics. Hey guys, same applies to plate tectonics. The Earth expanded. I know the pieces fit 'cause I watched Neil Adams' video. I gotta give him a shout out. He's like one of the, like, he's freaking dedicated his life to it. And James Maxlow, He's got good reconstructions that are more technical that show it. Still, without magnetic anomalies and the current undercurrents and basically rolling back time. It's just not capturing the essence of it. For many localities where there is no evidence that it describes the phenomenon in question well, and even where there is prima facie evidence that it does not. Prima facie. Based on accepted as correct until proved otherwise, based on the first impression. So based on like the first go through, evidence shows that it does not. So they're like applying this term everywhere there's anomalies. Unusual. Odd. How do we explain this? We'll just put a dot under it. It's just boiling up, man. You know what you mean? Ever boiled like a lava lamp or something? You really need to turn your lava lamp on more, man. Smoke some weed and look at it. Picture the convection, bro. Sorry, I'm being an ass. As I circled casual. Efforts are being made to test whether hotspots are indeed hot, and to address the difficult task of developing reliable methods to do so, which, difficult task. The endeavor is plagued by fundamental, technical, I don't know what she means by it, and philosophical problems. As a consequence, testing whether hotspots are hot is a surprisingly difficult task. Casual and widespread use of the term hotspot has been defended on the grounds that it may simply signify active surface volcanism. This cannot be justified because volcanoes at mid-ocean ridges and subduction zones would then also qualify as hotspots. What is potentially more problematic is that its use tends to encourage the presumption without testing that unusual, anomalous, volcanic regions arise from exceptionally hot mantle source rocks. Presumption that, when it's not the case. For this reason, a priori use based on theory and not observation, and we've got a lot of observations, dudes. I thought this was science. I mean, that's such a scientific way to say you guys aren't really engaging in science. Like, but what more could be done? Like, if it just isn't happening, and hotspots are just like sticking around like they're fact when they're really not. A single one has unequivocally been shown to exist. Like, what an alarming characteristic for a model. It's freaking out of control. The term carries with it the concept that volcanism in particular regions may be attributed, I don't know if that's visible, to some sort of specific local entity, a spot with an independent life of its own. This bolsters models of compact, localized melt delivery systems, which are also in general unjustified. Such a view is particularly lacking in support in regions where simultaneous ongoing volcanism is widespread over regions of hundreds of kilometers broad, such as Iceland, Yellowstone, the East African Rift, and Europe. I'm not sure where in Europe that is. I guess near the Mediterranean? I don't even know. I don't think like the Alps are like volcanic. The term hotspot is a neat and elegant term. However, it is flawed in that it is used to refer to volcanic regions in terms of an implied genesis process, mantle plumes, instead of reflecting uncontestable, observable characteristics. So observations, although uncontestable, people will, anything is contestable. Even the truth is contestable. What do you mean? That's not true. See? Like, someone could easily go into like a 7-year explanation for why 2 + 2 is 5. Well, let me explain. Just get fucking on and it's contestable. It's ludicrous, but it's to do so in that manner. But anyway, because I'm just saying, like, anything's contestable. observation, observable characteristic. It has tended to be ingrained to. It has tended to ingrain assumptions and de-emphasize the necessity of testing assumptions scientifically. We can't really test it, but we know. Yeah, if we could test it. Dude, how are we gonna see down there? We look at the earthquakes. What do you mean that's not hot? It's hot down there, right there. We saw it. Well, they're not doing it well. We did it better. We found it. Would you give me the accolades? We found it, dude. This has slowed progress in understanding anomalies and, my words, and in explaining the many features which remain enigmas today. Good job, guys. Are hotspots spots? Not even are they hot? Are they even spots? The concept that the melt delivery system of intraplate and unusually voluminous on-ridge volcanism are compact spot-like entities is at odds with observations, period. It arose originally from speculations on the origin of Hawaii, where current high-volume volcanism is centered on the Big Island. The concept is intrinsically linked to the plume hypothesis, which postulates that melt is supplied from the deep mantle through relatively narrow conduits. The widespread use of the term hotspot along with assumption of the plume model has resulted in views such as an attribution of the volcanism to an independent, self-sustaining entity that is compact, coherent, and exists in its own right. Kind of like expansion of space. This observation. Expansion. New thing. Coherent. It's its own compact thing that just exists, and it causes all these observations that we can't explain. Sure, it's based off Doppler shift, and we just kind of gave it a new meaning because it was expanding too fast. Well, moving apart too fast. Because velocity is actually Doppler shift. We'll just make it up, though. If we just make it up, what will they know? We just gotta act. Well, they'll pay to play, see? Well, if they don't play our bullshit game, then they don't get to play. And they better pay so that we can indoctrinate them as much as possible. Only then are they allowed to enter into a position to influence our bullshit lies. Yes, build them more. Thank you very much. We've done it. My God, we've explained Hawaii. Good job, Bill. You know, I was smoking weed looking at a lava lamp and, oh my golly, I got it. That's what happened. And then as the plate moved, makes perfect sense. And then some shit happened. It turned. Sure, it doesn't fit the motion. The hot spot. Sometimes it can move. Sometimes it's not just like lava lamp. It's like, imagine you got a lava lamp on a moving arm. See, it's moving, but it's always a lava lamp. So then it makes sense. The existence of a relatively compact primary point of melt delivery, possibly identifiable. So this was like a guess, I guess, at some point before they realized like they can't find these things. Identifiable with a single volcano, no more than a few kilometers or tens of kilometers across, from which any more wide-ranging So they were basically saying, if this is true, it should boop and just have like an exit point, right? Boom, like exactly perpendicular up. It's not like it's flowing sideways, it's just boiling up. So it should have a pretty like discrete exit point and nowhere else. So we should be able to find it. And so we propose it. Maybe we can find it. I'm assuming that's what this was. Hotspot tracks, other like possibilities, like makes me think of the Hotspot Highway. There's certainly something to the evidence there. I don't know what the hell to make of it. So I want to like completely discredit every nuance of hotspot stuff to a point where it like throws out valid things. Like they're focal points where undercurrents run into resistance and really just can't go anywhere else. So they just like erupt from that focal point, which can also be like a focal ridge or whatever, etc. Examination. Okay, let's go to the only things I underline because there's a long and I got a lot to go through. And if I do this, there's several posts. Here we go. I guess I'll keep going here. In continental areas, volcanism is commonly scattered over regions thousands of kilometers broad. Volcanic systems that have been built by magmatism that was only ever active at a single site and migrated in a uniform direction are rare. The best dated examples from long linear oceanic volcanic chains are from the 90 East Ridge, the Louisville Seamount Chain, and the Emperor and Hawaiian chains. The picture that emerges from most currently active volcanic regions styled as hotspots is one of volcanism distributed over broad areas and not produced from the local spots generally assumed. In those cases, expectation of coherent, simple, narrow, time-progressive volcano chains and singular sources are assumption-driven and not based on observations. Are hotspots hot? And then I'll just go down to this underline thing because it's quite intriguing. Temperature increase occurs, maybe I should go a little bit back here. There are two major thermal boundary layers in Earth, i.e. layers across which the temperature rises rapidly. These are at the surface and the core mantle boundary. A rise in temperature of approximately 1500 degrees Celsius occurs between the Earth's surface and the mantle across a depth of approximately 100 to 200 kilometers. This region is more accurately referred to as the conductive layer. The temperature increase occurs because heat is lost to space, cooling the surface. In the continents, the rate of heat loss is 50 to 100 megawatts per meter cubed, with a median of 60, and in the oceans it varies from 25 to 300, which is quite the large range, I thought, with a median value about the same as continents, which is interesting. The whole Earth, generally, both the oceans and the continents are about even heat loss rates. In spite of that, certain ocean regions are significantly different. Maybe that's actually related to the Arctic Ocean being so cold. I don't know. Maybe actually related to something like that. Heat flow decreases with the age of the oceanic floor up to 50 million, about when Hawaii showed up. The Hawaii. Maui, baby. Or Jalandhar. But is approximately constant for older crust, while Jalandhar was roaming the underworld. Volatiles, maybe I should read some more. It is self-evident that melt exists in the interior of the Earth, in both the crust and mantle, since it erupts periodically onto the surface. Unequivocal observational evidence. The mere presence of melt, in particular in large volumes, is often taken as evidence for unusually high temperature. This is not safe, as different lithologies melt at different temperatures. The mantle is conventionally assumed to be homogeneous and made of peridotite. Yeah. I don't really know that one. This cannot be correct, however, because numerous processes related to plate tectonics remove melt from it, spreading ridges, re-inject fusible near-surface materials, subduction zones, and differentiate and transport material within it. Other petrologies that must exist in the mantle include eclogite, still don't know, I think it's eclogite. Sorry guys, sorry geologists, like this fucking guy, man. He can make the jokes about plate tectonics, but can he put down, man? Can he put down, bruh? Or is he just a joker? Just a joker, huh? Shoot. Jokes ain't gonna get you far, boy. Shoot, that's all I got anymore. You guys ain't gonna listen to me. The volatiles, including water and carbon dioxide, lower the solidus of mantle, which I'll put over here, the temperature of partial melt, liquidus, temperature of full melt. So all it needs really to become fluid is partial melt and become melt. So the temperature of the solidus of mantle rocks is lowered by several hundred degrees up to by volatiles such as water. The effect of water is clearly illustrated as subduction zones, which is also part of expanding Earth. So it's not like subduction zones are actually more expanding Earth friendly than a lot of other things in terms of like even the term itself. Where arc volcanism arises from the fluxing of mantle rocks by hydrous fluid rising from the downgoing slab. So that's kind of the general plate tectonics paradigm, which is fine, generally speaking. It less probably falls below the ambient. At depths greater than 60, the solidus of peridotite drops from 1300 to 1000 in the presence of carbon dioxide. It less probably falls below the ambient mantle temperature at these depths. The partial melt thereby formed may be responsible for the seismic low velocity zone, which is typically approximately 100 kilometers thick and widespread beneath the oceans. The seismic low velocity zone is a global phenomenon, which is where the melt is. It really does make sense. It's crazy that this is really talking about these the undercurrents that I've been like looking at and like what's going on with them in other ways. The Earth is continually outgassing CO2. Dude, it's like a living being. And not a plant either. freaking mammal is like a goddess living being, conscious in all the ways that a more oxygen consuming breathing entity might do. I don't know. Continually outgassing CO2. It is transported through the mantle by the upward percolation of CO2-rich melts in the form of carbonate-rich hydrous silicate melts. These melts rise by virtue of their low density and viscosity and form carbonated, partially molten CO2-rich regions in the mantle that are expected to appear in seismic tomography images as low-velocity regions. They must have a major effect on the transport of trace elements, on the rheology and seismic properties of minerals, and on mantle structure and convection. Also, here's this image. Notice with excess water, the temperature, on the solidus temperature of peridotite, which is a main mantle component apparently, goes way down at higher pressure. Excess water. Flood making them. The flood made the earth molten. That's crazy. Okay, the H2O storage capacity of the mineral pargasite has been found to be strongly depth dependent and may control the depth of the lithosphere asthenosphere boundary by inhibiting volatile related melting at pressures less than 3 gigapascal. Depths shallower than 100 kilometers. So in shallow depths, there's a mineral that can basically create like a boundary layer that helps kind of create this conductive region, although it's shallower than 100. I don't know if that's kind of like an upper shell, and then like 200 is another layer that then has like a region in which current flows generally, although a lot of earthquakes are at 10 kilometers, so it's definitely way shallower than that too. Even carbonate lavas that erupt at the surface are unusual in containing almost no silicon dioxide and are comprising over 50% carbonate minerals. The only current volcanic gases erupting simultaneously are distributed indistinguishable from those emitted at mid-ocean ridges at Tanzania. Despite the continental setting, this suggests that a globally homogeneous reservoir of volatiles exists in the upper mantle that supplies volatiles to volcanism everywhere. Supplies current flow under currents everywhere. Massive and continuous outgassing of CO2 is an almost ubiquitous feature of hotspots, even during periods of inactivity. There is also abundant geochemical evidence for water and carbonatite contributions to the melt sources at Hawaii and the Western Mediterranean. Concentrations of CO2 of up to 6% have been determined for some Hawaii magmas. It has been suggested that hotspots might instead be wet spots and owe their excess magmatism solely to high volatile contents. Boom, dudes. Boom. Flood happened. And then I circled this and did that same image. Unfortunately, although high temperatures usually, but not always, reduce seismic velocities, low seismic velocities cannot be assumed to indicate high temperature because velocity is dependent on other effects. These include petrology, composition, mineralogical phase, and physical state, liquid or solid. Of all the influences, composition has the strongest effect and temperature the weakest. The method we're using is not even the dominant effect cause of the observation. There ain't no hot spots. There might be wet spots. I'm down for that wet spot because that's what it is. Olivine reduces the velocity. I don't know what this was. That reduces, decrease. Okay. Okay, I don't want to read all this. Here we go. This is usually taken to be the source temperature of... Okay, I don't know. Nevertheless, a problem with this is immediate temperatures. Estimates from hotspots are commonly compared to the mid-ocean ridge basalt average. Let me go back a little bit. I think it was here. A normal average surface source temperature is needed against which, yeah, so they need some kind, in order to say, is this hot, they need to figure out like a nearby temperatures to compare it to see if it's like relatively hot compared to its environment. So they need like an average source temperature, and this is usually taken to be the source temperature of the mid-ocean ridge basalts. The reasoning rests on the perception that the global spreading ridge system is a mantle sampling zone that is both widespread and relatively uniform in process. Temperature estimates from hotspots are commonly compared with the mid-ocean ridge basalt average. Nevertheless, a problem with this is immediately obvious. It cannot necessarily be assumed that all hotspot lavas arise from the same depths in the mantle as mid-ocean ridge basalt. It was concluded that the melt occurred in the depth range of 40 to 130. Okay, and then over here, crystal fractionation comes up, which relates to a couple things. Mount Girnar and Ontong Java region. The method is dependent on many assumptions, and a large range of temperatures may be obtained for a particular locality using different samples, assumptions, and/or olivine geothermometers. Variations of up to several hundred degrees Celsius may be obtained. If this is the case, the method clearly has little ability to test whether hotspots, lavas, arise from an unusually hot source. The uncertainty in the results is of the order of the total temperature anomaly expected. Literally, what are we doing? Regarding the conclusion regarding whether studied samples indicate a source temperature anomaly depends on the choice of normal temperature. Some investigators have taken the maximum temperature calculated for mid-ocean ridge, where others have rejected the high temperatures, attributing them to near-ridge hotspots. The latter approach assumes a bimodal temperature distribution in the mantle, thereby locking into this experiment a priori, based on theory and not observation, an inevitable outcome. Thus, even if there is agreement about the source temperature of lavas from a hotspot. If different mid-ocean ridge reference temperatures are assumed, different conclusions may be reached. So it's pretty much useless doing that kind of thing. Hotspot. And then this was from a PowerPoint that she had on her website of the opening of the Northern Atlantic. And I emailed her this. Here's Iceland, top here. And I said, it looks like there's an undercurrent that's going through here based on margin here, and then another current that seems to be going, like, shoving this over. So this is actually new findings. I started with just like, there's a current over here that's doing this kind of thing, and maybe another one that, based on that one image of ophiolites, that then has a current going through over here-ish, but it seems though like there's a boundary here and then it goes back. I'm like, oh, it's like pushing in here, but then another current is pushing it back this way here to a point where there's like an arc, but then like stuff going up this way that's coming from over here that gets past this current through Turkey region ends up basically avoiding this pressure by going up in between it here and carving across to go into North America, but then shoving this margin over and just basically interacting over here where Iceland forms at the margin here, basically as this green current is shoved northward. Like there's current going across and a pressure going north that's running into it all, and it's squeezing that current into the Kursk magnetic anomaly region here, just squeezing into its boundary so that the current is just, it's flowing, but then another current is running into it and pushing it, but then it's like a board that's loose that like gets lodged in a doorway or something, where then it's pushed into pressure on both sides, where this acts as like a wall to hold the current. So then it ends up creating an eddy here. There's also a current coming down from the Arctic that's flowing in this direction because of details that I heard from those videos of Gillian Falkers. But so this was kind of my thoughts, and I mentioned, I think Iceland might even have came out from Doggerland. I went so far as to say, I would suggest that because it has continental crust, that people aren't just like accepting. They're not accepting there's continental crust here, but it's there. Like, that's basically what she's saying. She's like, it's there in observations, maybe not so like absolute that they just based on like the crustal thickness kind of thing, where it's like that doesn't actually, that's like implies that there's like a chunk of continent involved. I think my suspicion is that it's like, where is it from? Where is it from then? Kind of thing, where they just deny it. But I suspect it was literally under Doggerland here. Like, here. Literally like a strip. So there's like a Thulian bridge, something like that. I probably could find it in her images best. There we go. Like that. Where it like connected. So if we just took this general pink region here and shoved it underneath Europe. Boop. So it's like forming, like it's not as it is, but like it's more under there where stuff is happening is what I'm getting at. It seems, my interpretation, maybe even I was thinking literally under like here, like related to this even, where then it moves out based on also magnetic anomalies. Like if we look at Iceland here, and then, like maybe, I don't know. There's also, I thought maybe it here as well. Like maybe it moved over and went out. I don't know. Underneath the crust. There's something's up here for sure. I suspect, just based on Doggerland and that time frames are not really understood well, I suspect that this moved outward and this region was lost to the sea. And Iceland was basically, I'll show you, let's go back here. Was like this, the mid-ocean ridge. So on this one specifically at 135. So as it starts to go north into the Atlantic, like it's kind of going there, but I'm thinking it's actually like going into resistance under the crust. Like it actually continued under the crust, like, to here. But then it ran into resistance like this and kind of just seeded something where it removed enough under layer of the region to seed Iceland with an actual like seed of this like nucleation site system to nucleate from this mass that it just stripped from under the underbelly because it's running into there and eddying and just removing it in some manner. But then where it shifts out, but while it's doing this, it's running into resistance and forking kind of like a trident, and so it's forming a trident pretty much. So we got the trident thing going on where it goes straight but then goes left and goes right. And in this case, I don't know why. Let me just read real quick. In my opinion, the fracture zone, pretty much what I just said. Not completely sure if this fits the data. I haven't looked very well. The recessed Doggerland region where flooding is known to have occurred at a later time points to missing underlayer material, which is something I recently came across with the Eromanga Sea, for example. So it's possible. Now I'm just thinking about if that's the case elsewhere too. Supporting it though is that there is a 9-degree offshoot. It's pretty much 90 degree. I mean, an offshoot going this way, so it goes forward, runs into resistance, and just branches to the sides along resistance. It is notably back versus over here. It's back here. It's really like right next to where Flemish Cap is. At Flemish Cap, which is... But then it goes left, dominant. Notice I said dominant here. This is the path it like preferentially went. where it could also go this way, but this was into resistance, and then this was also into resistance up here, where then it does go left though. Apparently around 60 million it's opening between Greenland and North America, or in Canada. And again though, it does the trident where it goes forward through here but branches off this way, and I think it also went to like the Great Lakes region over there, maybe. Like cutting into currents going eastward, it went westward into them and contributed at least to the eddy, or interacted with the eddy. Maybe it's all happening because everything else is happening, I don't know. But then it went right into North Pole flows. So notice we've got this thing that kind of matches the eddy I talk about all the time, and not all the time, but the Kursk magnetic anomaly eddy is surrounded by like a larger eddy kind of thing, and it quite resembles that by going this way and back here and then cutting in this way to join together, although possibly going that way. It looks like these were running into each other, like something was going up this way. Just based on that, I don't know. Well, yeah. Forming the Alps. Freaking early Cenozoic. The Alps were being flooded. Exactly. Makes perfect sense. And then the water goes away and the Alps are there. Is that what that is? Dude. I'm pretty sure that's water. I'm pretty sure this is like water on the continents. Dude, what the heck? How is that a thing? Anyway. Then back to this image. And then so this is a video presented by Lucia Perez Diaz. Played Driving Forces. I was kind of an asshole. Okay, I deserve it. So the Indian plate over a period of time going from sort of between 65 and 60 million years ago. So let's go back there real quick. Alright, it's in the thread. It's in the thread. Here. 60. Like, really, 6. Like, the fucking KT boundary, pretty much. To, like, the KT boundary. But let's go back. So the Indian plate over a period of time going from between 65 and 60, plate motion really speeds up. So it's moving northward on its way to eventually, this is a plate tectonics paradigm of course, to eventually collide with Eurasia. But over this short period, it really speeds up. It speeds up by over 200%. But now we have all of the spreading ridges accelerating. So then she goes on to say, it's not the only one. But now we have all of the spreading ridges accelerating, and we know that the Earth is not expanding. So, given that the Earth is not expanding, what does that mean? Does that mean then that every subduction zone is also accelerating at this time? And so you are consuming as much crust as you are creating? And there really isn't any geodynamic process that we could think of that could explain these types of spikes. Not just because of how strong they are, but also because of the fact that as quickly as they come, they disappear. And they don't seem to leave any sort of noticeable, they don't leave anything behind. They come, they go, nothing happens. The KT boundary happens. And so, the simplest explanation is that the time scale might be slightly wrong. Right? It's just like the hotspots. This is an anomaly. The plates are all speeding up. So that in order for the radius of the Earth to be this constant, they must all be subducting faster too. And she says that doesn't make sense. This is what we think is happening. It's an artifact. Basically, that's where we're going to go to. We are doing all of this work on the basis of magnetic anomalies, and we assign dates. We assign dates to our magnetic anomalies using the geological timescale. So if the times we are assigning to the edges of these crons are slightly wrong, then we would end up with artifacts when we are plotting velocities. Never mind that artifact is at one place, the KT boundary. And in our opinion, is the only explanation because we already ruled out expansion. There are no other geodynamic processes that could explain this type of behaviors. And the time scale error explains it very simply. All you need to do is make this period of time a little bit longer and the speed will come right down. No offense. This is what needs to be done though to maintain plate tectonics. She understands plate tectonics doesn't quite fit this. And because the Earth didn't expand, I'm just like, oh, why not consider it? The evidence is showing the model's false. Consider the other option. Or tweak literally tweak the evidence to match our expectations. That's our options. That's our options here. See that the Earth expanded, or fuck with the evidence and make it scientifically acceptable somehow. Whoa. I'm like, whoa. It's such a short-lived let me go back. Sorry. The speeds will come right down. And if you do that, if you remove these spikes, which we did coarsely, it wasn't that the main goal of the paper was not to revise the timescale. That's a project on its own. But if you just remove these or just ignore them and look at the trends over a longer period of time, yes, they anti-correlate, which was suggested, but they do so over a very long period of time. There's no reason you would relate this to the plume. We know that... and then I just repeated it. We know that the Earth is not expanding. And I said, you know plate tectonics is false when evidence against it requires a denial of expansion. Oh, shit. Literally, not even like someone presenting it. It's just evidence that arises that is against plate tectonics that requires denying expansion. Well, we already figured out that's not the case, so now that we see the evidence that it quite well could be, it's not the case, so let's move on. The period in question overlaps the KT boundary. If every spreading ridge is accelerating, either, this is her own words, let's look at that. We'll listen to her real quick. Also, she was sharing something from a thing, so it's kind of like an ad the whole time, but 1 second. Okay. Turn that down.
So there's two, let's say, if every spreading ridge is accelerating, either the Earth is expanding because you're creating all of this extra oceanic lithosphere, right? Or subduction is also accelerating, therefore the Earth is staying the same size and subduction is accelerating. The reason why I'm skeptical of it is not
First one. First one! And it's such a short-lived change. That's what makes me skeptical, and that's what makes me think there isn't a geodynamic process behind it, and it's more likely to be an artifact, because it is so short-lived. It's such a short pulse. And then I said, yeah, this is definitely proof the Earth expanded. And then someone asked, isn't there a story that the sea level was so high in the late Cretaceous? We've got lots of chalk in the late Cretaceous, so I believe there was a global ice dam. I think he said ice dam. It was hard to make out. Anyways, and he was kind of trying to remember because it was a while ago. Anyway, so sea level was high. Isn't it because there was meant to be a very large volume of mid-ocean ridge because there was a kind of global high rate of spreading? And so it was the sheer volume of mid-ocean ridge material that simply displaced the seawater onto the continents? Blood, dudes. It's a memory which might be imperfect from a number of years ago. And then I found this paper. This was the only one I came across in my looking. It does have sea level going high here. That kind of peaks around what looks to be more around 76, 7 maybe. Whereas over here, sea surface temperatures, low, I don't know if I'm reading this right though. If they are dropping, approaching the KT boundary. Water goes down, temperature goes down. It's freaking freezing. The Earth is just expanding so much so that it pushes into space itself, kind of thing. Or I think it's pretty chilly. Maybe. Kind of sweating. Okay, I made it through those. Made it through that. Let's go. So yeah, did that one. So we only got Kamchatka left, which I started here at this outlier. Earthquake just happened quite near the outlier. This one on the 25th, and then I said the 6.1 earthquake near Kamchatka, even more of an outlier than the previous. As a matter of fact, is past the outlier, which I show here. This is the previous outlier that I talked about several times. Even more than that, huge. And I said this has got to signify a real change in where pressure of undercurrents is being redirected or directed, where essentially they were flowing more this way and now they're being pushed outward this way, at least for the time being, until pressure over here falls more and beyond. This outlier is even more of an outlier since 1950, so I talked about this already. And then the threat of my outliers, which unfortunately I'll just kind of scroll through it in case it gets deleted. Fucking pieces of shit, man. It's just a matter of time before I get banned on Twitter again. Oh, get out of here. 6.1, so there's this, that one. 12 hours after, there still weren't any others at Kamchatka. And I said, still no others, strongly suggesting pressure exchange is now well underway, is inflowing into the Pacific with much less interaction into Kamchatka until the Pacific builds pressure, at least, as I just mentioned. And then I went through the quakes. I talked about this in the last one. Now let's just kind of get to this. Here's that outlet. On... Maybe, I don't think I streamed any of these 27s. Yeah, okay, that's probably a good spot then. 6.0 here, again at a... So this was one of three, again at around midnight, my Eastern. Only three here in the last day. These other orange ones are also the last day. Yellow is the last week. Strongly supporting the potential of the region is exhausting. It's actually managing to flow into the Pacific, like not the, as we know it, Pacific Basin, but the underlayer Pacific Basin, possibly related to the Pacific super plume, whatever exactly they're observing there, as some kind of like place where, kind of like a body of water, how it has like a recessed area that it pulls in, like the ocean. Strongly supporting the potential that the region is exhausting into the Pacific Basin now. Ring of Fire activating, question mark. And I proposed maybe that, I don't know, Drake Passage. I guess we got like a day or two, couple days, the next day, next few days, if we see like a high magnitude of Drake Passage, that would be crazy. Throughout the night, my night, only one other earthquake happened at Kamchatka. This was 27th at 11 a.m. Eastern. As previously seen with others, they were in the time frame of 2300 to 0300. I noticed, like, that's just thereabouts. This strongly indicates there's a high tide effect. Not saying it's a moon of undercurrents with periodicity, where there's some kind of periodicity at play here. I know Stephen Burns mentioned it in a recent episode, so I'll just point that out. Just, it's not really based off it, but he also saw it. The quiet emerging at Kamchatka, maybe it's based off it. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Let's just say it is. Who cares? The quiet emerging at Kamchatka is quite evident as well. So just like the lack of quakes here, current is what I'm interpreting. Current is freely exchanging into the Pacific Basin below the crust and filling the region slowly but surely like a balloon. Pressure will build until it bursts at the seams with major earthquakes along outlets. So as this flow goes in, it's filling up pressure in a low pressure zone that like has room for the pressure, for the energies relative to other areas, and so it accepts it because it's like a huge basin too. But then it fills and it flows elsewhere from there, and it like stops allowing flow in from here, so we might see like it pick up again over here. Meanwhile, as Kamchatka quiets, this region is showing some signs. So then we had this going on. Another of these like straight lines, all at arcs. Maybe doing like more of a like a shallogram opening kind of teeth shape, up down, up down. Maybe this goes across. Maybe to over here even, or it's like something like that. I don't know. And then I'm just kind of monitoring 21 earthquakes. Said it's super exciting that I predicted a major decrease in earthquakes after this 6.1 outlier. Almost like I know what I'm talking about. Feels good, man. It feels good. Feels good. I don't know, do I? I guess time will tell. 18 earthquakes as of 6:46, and then I saw a 3.5 at Hawaii, 19 at that point, and then I looked back, no, I think this is me. Oh yeah, these are all Hawaii. This is me looking here in the last month, maybe. And then in a longer time period where there's a 5.9, so it's not like there's not like larger earthquakes at Hawaii. So I just kind of noted it. I'm not sure how it connects to Kamchatka exactly, given its origin, although I've been thinking it's more like the head and the body is maybe more like this underbelly reservoir thing. That is how it's still connected to Hawaii. And then the reason I open this really is because I saw this today. Here's the image without my drawing on it. This is pretty clear. This one, dude, if I just follow these four and just follow them to that one, and then that one to that one, and then kind of like it bends going there. So it kind of looks like a flow just going boop and then out. But then if you think about it, if it's going that way, and maybe it's running into something going the other way, and so that something going the other way bends around it and goes up here, where it runs into resistance, not Kamchatka itself, but like underbelly region of still resistance though. It runs into it, bends around, but then it runs into there and cuts through it. Some of it like wraps off this way, some of it takes like a longer route maybe, but ultimately goes over here and wraps back around there, and then they pass each other enough where they stop interacting. But in the region where they're interacting, there's this shape that takes hold in the overall collective earthquakes for the week, where here's the 8.8 by the way, and I'm like, wait a minute, this shape right here that's going out, it's going quite adjacent. It is adjacent to the 8.8. I kind of gave it a big circle on purpose because I didn't feel like pinpointing it. The dot was like right there though, on here when I looked for it. Let's see if there's anything new. Kamchatka is like showing up again. Outlet. Oh, there it is though. Outlet. It's not as far out as this one, but it's at the outlet. Oklahoma, Tonga, Philippines. Okay. But so the 8.8 was here, and there's this path that goes, especially here. I didn't bother to do a very good job of it, but that goes here and wraps in here, and that's where the 8.8 was. I was thinking that there's a current that was going in here, some maybe going up that way even, or in here up that way. I don't know exactly where it would have gone from there, but was generally being pushed this way, and another current that was maybe going northward off of it that is related to the other one, where the 8.8 happened, and that essentially shoved this current over past it. So then they're like interacting with each other until it took a new shape, kind of like leading towards like this kind of thing. Which makes me think of a bow and arrow, really. Like, it makes me wonder if like this will actually take the shape of a bow and these earthquakes will go out further and then will like propagate across in like an arrow way. Maybe not actually do anything until they hit like an arrow. But something where these currents are interacting with each other. This one's going like this, so I guess for some reason it wants to go over there. I haven't really thought about it. Maybe it's going up this way and in there. Was it there? Yeah, there's the earthquake. And then it goes just past it, boop, and goes maybe just in, so that the earthquakes kind of stop around here because it's passing it and just turning in. Doing so wobbly though, because the other current is crossing it, but it doesn't want to like go down this way. This current is not just going to deflect down and go the way this current's deflecting as easily. So it just kind of goes that way. Although I could see that the other current overwhelming it enough to actually force it that way. But theoretically, I don't think that would happen in this case. But a priori. Boom. How you like them apples? Bro, I've been breaking the game 11 years, but the last like 4 or 5, bro. Actually, I made it through my posts, so I mean, I could keep going, but it's cool. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See you next time. Cool. I hope this was a good episode. I feel pretty good about the topics, so hopefully it turned out well.